sat there and read it.
Whoa.
Now talk to your friends, but read it silent.
All right, sit down and slate in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so today, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys just read a little bit of chapter 14, right? So you already kind of know what it's about. But I want you to think about this word. And I want you to tell me what it reminds you of. Because we're going to do a brain bubble. What does this word remind you of, Tamita?
Like when you go to the doctor, you go get a shot.
Oh, so it reminds you of getting a shot. Chester, what does it remind you of? Medicine, okay. A shot. What does it remind you of, Tahani?
From going to the doctor, it reminds me of being cured by a famous doctor.
Being cured, okay.
By a famous doctor.
Okay.
It's at Virginia.
What does it remind you of, Zachary?
Doctor have to sit in the chair and wait for the doctor.
Okay, so like sitting in the chair and waiting.
Playing your system. Waiting for
What does
an
it remind you
hour.
of, Jovan?
I know you have to sit in the chair. Making sure that we're not crazy.
Oh,
I
making
like
sure you're not
t-shirts.
crazy. Okay, so I'm going to write that word, crazy.
Genesis, sit up.
So we're going to keep this brain bubble in mind as we read. And what we're going to do today is we're going to read a story, chapter 14, which you've already read a little bit of. And while you're reading, you're going to think, what does this remind me of? Okay? So when you get your book, I want you to open to page 105 and track the word the. Go.
We already read chapter 5. We ate on the crickets.
I know that you did that. That's why I said we're going to read.
Can we do popcorn reading?
So you should be on the word the. And while you read today, I'm going to give you a glossary term so that if you come across a word that you're unsure of, you can take a look at our glossary. Okay. You guys want to share that one? All right, so I'm waiting for everybody to be tracking their book.
I said I want y'all to read it also.
Waiting for everybody to be tracking their books.
Go to 105.
So while we read, think about what does this remind me of. The next day was Saturday. Fern stood at the kitchen sink, drying the breakfast dishes as her mother washed them. Miss Arable worked silently. She hoped Fern would go out and play with other children. Instead of heading to the Zuckerman's barn to sit and watch animals. Charlotte is the best storyteller I've ever heard, said Fern, poking her dish towel into a cereal bowl. Fern, said her mother sternly. Remember, that's on our vocabulary list, your glossary term, sternly. You must not invent things. You know spiders don't tell stories. Spiders can't talk. Charlotte can, replied Fern. She doesn't talk very loud, but she talks. What kind of story did she tell? Asked Miss Arable. Well, began Fern. She told us about a cousin of hers who caught a fish in her web. Don't you think that's fascinating? So I'm going to stop right there. And that story that Fern just told her mother, that reminds me of when I went fishing once, and I caught a fish when I was in Mexico.
You've been in Mexico?
Yeah, so what? So I want you guys to practice, and I want you to write down what this passage reminds you of, okay? So on the right side of your graphic organizer, Tahani, I want you to write down what this reminds you of. What we just read. What does it remind you of? Go ahead and write it in.
What we are going to do is...
What does it remind you
This reminds me of going to an island.
Write it down. Write it down. Write it down.
Can I go to the bathroom?
Yes. When you're done. So I see Demita has started writing. And then when you're finished writing what it reminds you of, write about what was happening in the story on the left-hand side.
No, it reminds me of when the
Write it down, we'll share. We'll share.
It was awesome.
It's winning. So they talk about the tiger lily, also talk about Anthony, that should not go enough before you open that person.
How do you spell
Okay, take 30 more seconds to get your ideas down on the right side and on the left side. I want you to write just what's happening in this little bit of the story.
Oh.
And then what it reminds you of.
This is Avery. Bless you. This is Avery's not belief.
So Zachary, now write in the left-hand side, write about what is happening right now in the story that made you think of that. Okay, in 10 seconds, I want you to have your book in your hand, and I want you to be ready to follow along. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, book in your hand in 3, book in your hand in 2, book in your hand in 1, 0. Every student should have their book in their hands. Jovan has his book in his hand. Chester has his book in his hand. Zahani has his book in his hand. Zachary and Zamita, we're waiting for you.
Me too.
Zachary, put your pencil down, pick up your book. You'll have a chance to finish it. Zamita, you'll have a chance to finish. Let's keep reading. 105, it says, "Fern dear, how would a fish get in a spider's web?" said Miss Arabelle. "You know it couldn't happen. You're making this up." Flip over the page. "Oh, it happened all right," replied Fern. "Charlotte never fits. This cousin of hers built a web across the street. One day she was hanging around in the web, and a tiny fish leaped into the air and got tangled in the web. The fish was caught by one grandmother. Its tail was wildly thrashing and shining in the sun." Notice that the word thrashing is on our vocabulary. Can't you just see? And all right, let's turn back to our book. It says, "Can't you just see the web sagging dangerously under the weight of a fish?" Charlotte's cousin kept slipping in, dodging out, and she was beaten mercilessly over the head by the wildly thrashing fish, dancing in, dancing out. "Fern," snapped her mother, "stop it. Stop inventing these tales." "I'm not inventing," said Fern. "You're right, we have inventing on our list too." In this case, we don't have inventing.
And merciless.
It says, "I'm just telling you facts. What laughing past her mother, whose curiosity began to get the better of her. Charlotte's cousin won. She wrapped the fish up, then she ate him when she got good and ready. Spiders have to eat the same as the rest of us. Yes, I suppose they do, said Eric Terrible, vaguely. Charlotte has another cousin who is a balloonist. She stands on her head, lets out a lot of flying, and is carried aloft on the wind. Mother, wouldn't you simply love to do that? So let's stop right there. I want you to write what you just read about. I want you to think, what does that remind you of? And write that in your right-hand column. Go ahead, silently. What does what we just read about remind you of? Go ahead.
I already did. You also
So, honey, you're not going to the bathroom until you do this. So I see Jovan is writing. We will do this with Spanish. You need to write another one. And then in the left-hand side, write about what's happening in the story. What happens in the story to make you think?
other cousin,
So write that in there. I'm going to give you 45 seconds to finish up. Tahani, make sure you fill out the left-hand side too. Make sure you fill out the left side too, Chester. Cousin. Okay, so track me real quick. Track my whiteboard. Tahani and Chester are tracking. Jovan is tracking. Zachary, put down your pencil for me. You need to put down your pencil for me. You'll have a chance. So we didn't quite get to the part of this chapter that's about a doctor, but when we pick this up again, we'll take a look and see how our thought bubble, how our brain bubble helped us start thinking about the chapter, okay? So when I say go, I want you to put your name on your paper and form one pile of everything in the middle, and then find your seats. Go. You're going to stand. So put your name on.
Now can I go? That is the restaurant. Okay, now go to Herriges. That's the restaurant. Thank you.
Honey.
One of the people in the library for the books go
I
inside.
guess we're learning about today. Can I go with him? Excuse me.
My library folks, come find a silent seat at your desk. Make sure all the books are back in the bin. Thank you.
I went to the bathroom.
All right, go find your seats, third grade.
Who went to the bathroom? Anthony.
I told you to go.
Anthony isn't talking about.
All these tissues don't belong to you.
See ya.
Why do you have all these tissues?
Can I have y'all books?
Why? What's supposed to be in your desk? You better not get, put it back in your desk and go wash your hands. You better not get your behind up now for a tissue or nothing. You understand? If you ask somebody for a tissue, you understand me? understand, I'm verbal. Alright.
Zachary, can I have that?
I'm not gonna finish it. I forgot I'm
Finish it. When I come back.
Okay.
Where's the boy?
Jovan, look under your desk. And that's your paper. Jovan, that's your paper.
But I didn't write collaborate.
I didn't put it right there, it's on my hand.
It's your chair.
Yep.
Turn it off.
Alright, wait, see if it's in.